For the introduction session, I was inspired by someone who questioned me and told me they didn't know what fabric is for. So sometimes it's good to get back to the beginning and explain a bit of the basics. And anyone who already knows this content is welcome to help me to add more to the discussion. Let's make it the discussion. The main point I'm highlighting here on the title is that production is not analytics. We should not mix production with analytics. So let's understand the factors role on this. Let's start with today's subject about production is not analytics, understanding Microsoft roles in this scenario. Microsoft Fabric roles in this scenario. So let's imagine the production of a company, daily activities of a company. The production environment of a company will have production apps, numerous production apps. These production apps are created by developers, and the data of these apps is managed by the DBAs, generating the production data. So developers and DBA, although the tech developer is way broader than this, there are many developers that stay focused on the production environment and sometimes don't know what is beyond that. And what is beyond that? The analytics environment, where we take our data to make analysis of our data, of the daily activities of the company, and understand what is happening in the daily activities of the company and take decisions based on this. So we have BI developers who develop BI models and reports, and we have business analysts who use these BI models and reports to analyze what's happening in the company and direct business decisions. But how the data goes from one end to another end? There is a common situation that the production data sometimes is just retrieved by the BI models and reports. This is a huge and terrible mistake. This is something that should never be done. The reports, the BI analysis should never rely on the production data itself. Why? Why? Well, I'm summarizing something that could be expanded in a one-day talk. So they have different modeling. The production use normalization, the normalization technique for modeling. Why production needs the normalization technique? Because the way production access the data. Production access the data record by record and making updates on the records individually. For example, the receptionist of a company will access information about a customer, one customer, individually, and can make updates on that information of that customer. The normalization modeling is ideal for this scenario, for this flow of data, which is usual in production, but is terrible for the flow of data in analysis. Because in analytics, the flow is completely different. We never update data in analytics. We are analyzing historical data. In this way, we are only reading. There is no update. The modeling requires no optimization for update, only for reading. This already changed the requirements for modeling. And we are not accessing the records individually. We access lots of records. How many sales happened during the month, for example? We access lots and lots of the records at once. So the modeling is completely different. We use normalization in production. We use at least the star schema, star or snowflake schema in analysis. Different workloads. What I was just mentioned about the different methods of accessing the data, these different workloads, if you put them together, one will disturb the other. The update from production will block reporting workloads. And reporting workloads will consume CPU and make the production slower. These workloads are not made to work together. They are not intended to work. Different integration. In production, we can have many production apps, and it's okay. The company works. There is no problem. The daily activities in the company will work. We can have an app to manage the contacts with the customer. We can have a different app to manage sales, a different app to manage employees, and the daily activities in the company will work. In analysis, we need to integrate all the information from different apps which were never built, intended to be integrated, and integrate the information from these apps. Because at the end, all the information belongs to the company. It's the information from the company. So it can't be information contradicting each other. And there is a different history requirement. Production doesn't care about the history of the data. Production cares about what's happening now. What's the current information of the customer? The current address, the current phone number, and so on. Production cares about what's happening now. Production doesn't care about historical information. It cares about what happens now. So, let's talk about data history and fake data. Let's imagine this customer. John, he lives in Italy, and then he decides to buy a bike from our company. He makes an order of a bike. Let's imagine we are following the good practice, and following the good practice, we are copying this data to the analytical area. So we have a pipeline to transfer this data to the analytical area, dimension for customer, and the fact of the order. And like I said, production doesn't care about the history. So what happens if John moves? He doesn't live in Italy anymore. He lives in Spain. What happens? Production will go there and update the record. For the production work for the company, this is okay. The company will continue working. This will not disturb the work of the company. But what happens if I let this happen in the analytical area? If I do the same and just transfer that data, and the customer in the analytical table becomes a customer living in Spain. What happens now is that my analytical record shows a historical order of a bike from a customer living in Spain. This never happened. I have in my analytical area an information that never happened. It's fake. It's fake. So the analytical modeling doesn't support the same structure than the production. The production developers don't care about history because it's not important for their purpose. But when we take the data from production and bring to analysis, if I let this happen, Any analysis about the number of orders I have by country will be twisted, will not be true. So we need to be very careful in relation of feeding our analytics data with fake data. That's why all this explanation is why it's a huge mistake to make BI reports with data directly from production, because they are reading from an environment which was not prepared for data analysis. There was no preparation that data for data analysis. Let's talk about a classical, a bit old design. This design has many differences today, but it is still an important point of view. Let's talk about this classical design. We have many data sources. Why many data sources? As I said, you can have many production apps, many apps in production. So we can be reading the data from these many data sources, and then we will transform this data, clean this data, integrate this data, transform this data. This is a process called ETL, extract, transform, and load. This diagram I'm showing now and to the end is showing ETL. But today we talk a lot about ELT. What's the difference? The difference is what you do first. ETL, you extract, you transform, and you load to a target. The ELT, you extract, you load to a target, and transform, and sometimes making many stages of transformation. And this leads to the Medallion architecture. Maybe you may have heard about it, about the Medallion architecture, which is used nowadays in data engineering. So, the ETL process lands the data in a data warehouse. Warehouse, lakehouse is a choice nowadays. In the past, we were used to only call warehouse. Nowadays, it's a choice, a technological choice. Then, from the warehouse, we can create what is called a semantic model. Why? Let me try to summarize this a lot. I illustrated the problem. The fake data that can come into analytics. How do we solve this problem? We solve this problem using many different modeling techniques, such as one modeling technique called slowly changing dimension type 2, for example. Or another possibility, data vault techniques. These are modeling techniques which solve the problem of the fake data. But then the modeling in the warehouse, in the example, becomes very complex. And then we need to make a specific, let's say, like exports of this modeling, specific visualizations of this modeling. Besides that, we're talking about a single warehouse. This single warehouse, I'm using the technical name, this can call, in terms of architecture, a single source of truth. A centralized single source of truth of the company. But let's consider this like math. I'm telling that warehouse is a single source of truth, and the single source of truth is the best way to handle the data in the company, which is true. It's true, but it's not complete. It's like when we are learning math. Numbers start on 0, and when we are older, we discover that there are numbers below 0. Same thing. Single source of truth is great, but doesn't look alone in the complete story. Okay. So from the single source of truth, we create the semantic model. In the past, this was technically called a cube where we organize the dimensions in different ways. For who is specialized in Excel would recognize this as a pivot table, for example. In the past, in Power BI, Microsoft had the data sets. And some time ago, very recently, Microsoft renamed the data set to semantic model. Why? Semantic model, the word semantic, the meaning of semantic model is way older. It's an architectural meaning. What Microsoft did was to match the feature with the architectural meaning, the meaning of the semantic model, a view over the single source of truth. And then we make reporting. The reports over the semantic model, eventually getting some data directly from the single source of truth, but mostly getting data from the semantic model. And then we make the reporting and analysis. And where Power BI fits in this? I was talking initially about Power BI. Power BI gets the part of reporting and analysis and the semantic models. Power BI doesn't get the single source of truth and the ETL, not the corporate ETL. So some people tried to create a single source of truth inside Power BI, but it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. For example, the ideas are opposite. The idea of a single source of truth is get everything, because someday you may need this data. You may need to make an analysis of that historical data. You are getting the data before you know what you can achieve with it. Get and store. So the idea of the single source of truth is to get everything. The idea of the semantic model, and you may have heard this in many technical recommendations related to Power BI and analytics and BI analysis, is the idea of the semantic model is get only what you need for those reports. Don't get any extra field, don't get any extra table, don't get anything else, because this will hurt performance. And both are absolutely true, because we are talking about two different things. Because we are talking about two different things that we should not mistake. The semantic model consumes from a single source of truth, not from production, and we can't make the semantic model be the single source of truth. At this time, in history, at this time on this stage, we had a problem. As I said, we couldn't make the single source of truth inside Power BI. So where we would make this single source of truth? We could do it in Azure. Yes, we could do it in Azure. We have Synapse Analytics to do that. We have Data Factory to make the corporate ETL. But the problem of this architecture, a problem that at the time we think, oh, that's how things are, is that we are using lots of different tools to achieve one purpose. Power BI at the front, Synapse Analytics on the single source of truth, Data Factory to make the ETL, and so on. Lots of different tools, and having to jump between them, jump between the tools. At the time, we accepted it. That's how it is. But things get better. So talking about the ETL, I mentioned that this is the enterprise ETL. Yeah, the ETL responsible to make the single source of truth. Power BI has another level of ETL. Because if you are familiar with Power BI, you may be familiar with Power Query. And Power Query is an ETL and can make transformations of the data. Can transform the data, can consume the data and transform the data. Can. But the idea is more to be a self-service ETL, to be used by people closer to the end user, closer to business analysts, consuming the single source of truth, and making the single source of truth available in the format they need. So we have the corporate ETL and the self-service ETL. And Fabric. That's what happened when Fabric was created. Fabric just got everything into it. That's what Fabric is. Instead of us having to use many different tools, keep jumping between different tools, we have everything inside Fabric. So, Fabric can make the corporate ETL. We have data factory options like pipelines and data flows Gen 2 inside Fabric. We have notebooks inside Fabric. We can make the corporate ETL. Fabric can make the corporate ETL with. Fabric can hold the single source of truth. It can be a warehouse, but it can also be a lakehouse. It can be a custom database, which is known as Azure Data Explorer. So we can choose what kind of single source of truth we will have. And this chart is still demonstrating ETL, where the transformation is done in one stage. Because we have nowadays the idea of the medallion architecture and using ELT, lowered and make transformations in multiple stages. That's why the medallion architecture says we should have a bronze layer, a silver layer, a gold layer. It's not exactly to the letter, but it's interesting to follow as much as possible. So we can apply the medallion architecture inside Microsoft Fabric exactly because we have different storage which adapt to this medallion architecture. For example, the lakehouse can receive unstructured data as well, can receive the raw data and make the import to structured data. We have the semantic models. In the past, we had data mass, but they are discontinued now, deprecated. We have the self-service ETL using Power Query. So we have this entire environment inside Fabric. So the idea is to not keep jumping from tool to tool, and sometimes the tools don't integrate so well, and so on. Use one single tool. Use one single place, one single structure. That's what Microsoft offers with Fabric. So, back to that chart. Let's talk about the data engineer. The data engineer is the professional responsible for this area, for building the ETL, ELT process, and ingesting the data into the medallion layers, especially if it is an ELT process lowered into medallion layers, which will make many layers of transformations and enrichment of the data, handling the data quality, and then land the data in the single source of truth. The BI developers will consume the single source of truth to build their BI models and reports. That's the best practice. And this is a practice independent of tool we use. The idea is that It's a terrible practice to make the reports and BI models consumed directly from production. It's a terrible, terrible idea. And besides that, we have the AI engineers working on the results of all these, building AI models and getting AI results from all these. And this is happening. Fabric was always based on what I keep calling the same name as when Fabric was launched. Were called experiences. Fabric has the data factory experience, or the experience where we use the data factory objects to manipulate data, data pipeline, data flows. We use data factory objects to manipulate data in an almost no-code scenario, an almost no-code method. We have data engineering. Data engineering is the part related to the lake houses, to store the data in lake houses, and the data can be structured or unstructured. And in the data engineering, we also have the Spark notebooks. The Spark notebooks, which are also capable to make the role of an ETL or ELT tool, ingesting data, transforming data, and so on. So in fact, we have a choice in relation to the experience. We can use the notebooks inside the data engineering experience, or we can use Data Factory to ingest data. We have the data warehouse experience. The warehouse is focused on SQL. The lakehouse is more storage related. We manage in more details the storage of the data of the lakehouse. The warehouse is more SQL related. The warehouse manages the storage for us and let us have a full SQL experience. The lakehouse has a SQL experience as well. We can use SQL in the lakehouse, but it's a partial SQL experience. We can't, for example, have write tasks in SQL in overall lakehouse. We can have overall warehouse. Warehouse is a full SQL experience. We have the real-time intelligence, an entire area to use real-time ingestion, to control the real-time ingestion. What would we need in the past? Kafka, Event Hub, Event Stream. The real-time intelligence inside Fabric not only can do the same work that these tools, but also accepts the same incoming protocol as these tools. You can configure the event stream in real-time intelligence to accept the input as if it were a Kafka. The applications connecting to it and sending data to it will think it's a Kafka, but it's the event stream inside Fabric. So it can make the work of these tools. The database areas start to expand. Microsoft started the idea to make things even easier than they already are in Azure. But this is not exactly analytics. This starts to be a borderline area with production. For example, we have a Fabric database, which is basically an Azure SQL inside Fabric. If you think Azure SQL is easy to provision inside Azure, it's way easier to provision inside Fabric. And the idea is to provide this kind of support for no-code and low-code applications. So for Power Apps applications, for example, instead of them requiring a provisioning database in Azure and to handle all the provisioning questions about which database to choose and so on, Fabric handles it. Just put the database inside Fabric and Fabric will handle all the provision problems. So that level of handling is why Microsoft is used to call Fabric a software as a SaaS solution. Although I think the borders of these definitions changes a lot. We need new definitions. They don't fit anymore. Software as a SaaS, infrastructure as a SaaS, platform as a SaaS, they don't fit anymore. I think we need new definitions in the middle. We have OneLake, and this part is very interesting because the point is we can be working with Lakehouse, we can be working with Warehouse, we can be working with real-time intelligence, but all the data is stored in the OneLake. It means that if my department uses a Lakehouse and the other department uses a warehouse, I, in my Lakehouse, can access the data from that other department in the warehouse, as long as they allow to. And we have the idea of shortcuts. This brings the idea of data products. This bring huge architectural ideas like data mesh. I said single source of truth was only the beginning, and it was only the beginning. We have data mesh. I'm used to call data mesh as multiple single source of truth. It seems contradicting, but it's not. Okay, some very small, silly, and basic solution comparisons. Databricks. Databricks is very focused on lakehouses, very focused on lakehouses structures, and very code focused. Snowflake is very focused on warehouses. Snowflake is very focused on them. Azure can make all these tasks, but with one different tool for each one. So we need to keep jumping from tool to tool to use that. And Fabric, how you want. You can use lakehouses, warehouses, you can use real-time data, all in a single environment. And more than that, this was sought for big corporations, for small companies and big corporations. Big corporations may have the department A using Databricks, the department B using Snowflake. They already invested, they don't want to lose their investment. Okay. Fabric can make shortcuts to that. We can shortcut data from Databricks into Fabric. We can read into Fabric the data from Databricks. We can have access to it and continue their work in adding more analytics inside the environment. The same with Snowflake as well. The integration is absolutely. So we can integrate all these environments in a big corporation. That's why in the previous slide, there was the design of the Pureview. Pureview is intended for governance, for make the governance of big corporations, and Fabric integrates this Pureview. Okay. So let me get any workspace here. So I can click new icon. I have a huge variety of items here. Data flow and pipelines related to data factory. Lakehouse related to data engineering. And see what I mentioned about integration with Snowflake. We can mirror a Snowflake database, for example, or link to a Snowflake database. Warehouse. So we have all these tools integrated in the same environment, in a single environment. That's the power of Microsoft Fabric. That's what Microsoft Fabric brings to the table in comparison with other tools. I said, my comparison in relation to the other tools was silly. I don't have a full knowledge on all the other tools to make this comparison. It was very superficial. Anyone who would like to add some details about this? Some of you may know more about Databricks, Snowflake, and so on. No? Okay. Just as an interesting example, let me see where it is. I think it's here. And this is in custom session. I didn't prepare ideal example for this session, but this is an interesting one. This I'm preparing to record the session that will be in the Power BI Summit this year. I will send a recording to them. Their sessions are always recorded like this. I'm preparing the recording of this session. What I'm doing here, I'm using real-time ingestion. I'm using the event stream to make a real-time ingestion. And in scenarios where what I want is just to make a point, Fabric allows me to use the real-time ingestion with sample data. For example, New York taxi ride. So I can just use sample data from the yellow taxi sample data and ingest this data into an event house. An event house is the object that we could say is equivalent to Azure Data Explorer. Yeah, it is a custom-based storage. So I'm injecting this data. Right now, this is happening. This is being ingested. Now, at this moment, it's online. I can take a look on the event house. The event house is telling me the amount of rows ingested along the time, each day. I left this running for some days already. So let's see. Let me make a zoom. Here I make a simple count on the amount of taxi rides I have. I mean 11 million. And it's a demonstration. It's a demonstration. I was working with real-time ingestion last year. I was working in databases 4 billion rows. 4 billion rows. In fact, I'm trying to increase this until I record the session to make more difference in relation to timing and performance that I want to demonstrate. That I want to demonstrate on this session. Okay. The text rewrite table I included here as a bronze layer table. Is the table that just arrived from real-time ingestion. So it's just arrived. It's considered a raw table, bronze layer table. But then in this information that just arrived, I have locations. Where the ride started, in which location the ride started, where the ride was completed, which location. These arrives with IDs. In real-time ingestion, everything arrives with IDs. Then I have dimensions like location that I need to match these IDs. I need to match the IDs of the locations from the real-time data to the location dimension. And how this work? In Custo, I can just create what is called an update policy. I create a function that makes the transformations I want over the data. And then I register this function as being an update policy in a table. What this means? This means that every time one record arrives, that record is already transformed in my database by the update policy. The update policy already transforms it, adding the mapping of the location. I'm using the join to add in the maps of the location. So if we take a look on tax rights and answered, is the table that I'm considering here has a silver layer. Tax rights and answered. So it's join the locations here. Okay. And this is silver layer. In this example, I made another example of a gold layer using materialized views. I can create a materialized view, getting on another table and making transformations. And the transformations will be made when every record arrives. So I can, for example, read this. This is a borrow summary table that, according to the records arriving in my real-time ingestion, the records are transformed, mapped with the locations, transformed to a silver layer, and then the materialized view summarize the data, getting a total of rides by location by day. And you may be noticing this is a single line of transformation, but the fact is I can have many update policies, I can have many materialized views making multiple lines of transformation, multiple lines on this, what we can call a medallion architecture, done entirely inside real-time, using real-time data. It was never that easy inside Azure, for example. It was never that easy inside Azure. Any questions? Anything you would like to mention, ask, comment?
These steps are not ETL steps, right? These steps you mentioned right now are not about the ETL process.
ETL is an architectural term.
I understand.
Not specifically a technology. So we can say this is ETL. but I'm using an ETL, I'm building an ETL with way different technology than usual. It's not notebooks, it's not data factory. I'm using tricks and features inside the Custo database. But instead of ETL, we could call ELT. I'm loading and creating transformation phases after loading. So we could call ELT, not ETL. But ETL, ELT are architectural names. Does this help?
I'm just trying to understand how did you bring the, for example, table here? Let's say we are in a production environment.
The first table arrived because I was using the event stream. The first table arrives because the event stream. The event stream is receiving a constant influx of rows.
Where from?
I specified a sample. I asked a sample, and Microsoft is reproducing this influx as a sample scenario. It's just showing, giving me rows completely. I could have built an endpoint and give this endpoint to an app to send me this data, and could be built in different ways. In this scenario, I'm using a sample.
Is it possible to connect to a relational database like SQL Server?
It's possible. One of the sources, one of the existing sources is SQL CDC. I tested this source once. If you enable CDC in SQL Server, you can make this connection. But there are many news related to this. SQL Server 2025 is focused on data streaming capabilities, not only on enabling CDC, but enabling the capability of streaming the CDC changes, and Fabric is capable to consume it. I have not digged too much into this. It's on the 2025 new SQL Server, but it's available there. So yes, you can get real-time data from a relational database like SQL Server. Questions? No? Okay. In this way, we just saw a demonstration about the power of Microsoft Fabric, what Microsoft Fabric brings.